animal. The thing that concerns me the most about this is that when she went down there to pick them up, she would pay with her own check. Then she would put in a requisition asking for the money to be returned. Then there was a purchase order made and she was issued the money. My concern is that why are we paying with our own check and why aren't we paying with Helmeta's check? Why wouldn't Helmeta issue her a check for the amount of the transportation fees prior to the time that she went down there, knowing what was going to happen with these animals? They could have issued her a check. So I'm a little concerned about, is she taking this and writing this off on her own taxes? Because as a donation, some of these you'll see, when I give them to you, have donation written at the bottom.
Oh yes,
As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, these are all of the transportation fees for Israel. This is a good little stack, and this is only for about a year and a half's worth of transportation fees. When I spoke the last time, we discussed the issues with the drugs and the Talibol. In September, according to the euthanasia records, there was 13 animals that were put to sleep. 11 cats, 2 dogs. Again, I don't know how they were put to sleep with no stethoscope, no sounding table, and without the proper license. Thank you. License to do so. The last time she put an animal to sleep in September was, I believe, I want to say it was around 28th or so. I'm not sure off the top of my head. 18th. That's what it was. It was the 18th. On 9/24, she ordered 2 more bottles of Talibol. Okay? This was a week after she put the animals to sleep. She so far, according to the euthanasia records, has only put to sleep, which I find hard to believe, but only put to sleep 4 animals in October, and they were all on 10/8. She ordered 2 more bottles of Talibol from the new vet. That's 4 bottles of Talibol in 3 weeks. 4 bottles of Talibol can put down 8,000 pounds of animals. 8,000 pounds of animals. She put down 4 cats in October. Let's say each animal was 20 pounds. Where's the other 7,920 pounds of animals? And why, on God's green earth, are we still ordering Talibol when they don't have a license to have it?
And I could say the new vet is extremely concerned.
As he should be.
That's the new vet.
What's that?
Who's the new vet?
He's been on to go. His name is Alan.
Bowie?
Yes.
So it's not the one in Jamesburg?
No.
No, he's there supposedly for an emergency. The other vet is around and they can go to him.
And this vet,
what he told me.
and this vet goes in there, literally goes in there and makes sure.
Oh yeah, he actually goes and he's supposed to be there once a week.
I've spoken to him on Thursdays when he's been there.
So you have somebody's eyes in there.
Correct. Only one person's allowed to speak at a time.
He is supposed to be there once a week. However, he goes and he also volunteers his time on Sunday.
But I'm saying you have other eyes in there now.
Guys, you have to come up and ask the questions individually. Sorry.
Well,
It's the rules.
Okay, I also have here, which I got back this week, I requested some additional over documents. All came from the health department and what they're supposed to have. One of the things that I find interesting is that there was 8 of them. The one that I received wasn't anything close to what I asked for. The rest of them they didn't have, with the exception of one particular item. This right here is the controlled dangerous substance registration for Helmeta. This means that you can have controlled dangerous substances in your facility. The only one that is allowed to be in that facility is sodium pentobarbital. Only. That's it. There is not allowed to be Talibol in that facility at all. It has to be brought over by a vet. It has to be administered in front of a vet. It has to be taken back to the vet. It cannot be administered in that facility. They do not have a license. It's sodium pentobarbital only.
And also tramadol.
Tramadol, right, and tramadol has to be locked up. It can't be just sitting out on top of the microwave. I showed you those pictures the last time I was here. The other thing I want to talk about and this is really disturbing to me. This is probably, even with the drug thing, this really disturbs me, and I'm going to read this. On September 25th, 2014, I received a phone call letting me know that Petflow in Cranberry, New Jersey was donating approximately $5,000 to $8,000 per month in cat food, dog food, and cat litter, etc. I was shocked by this, as the shelter is always asking for donations of cat and dog food. Several weeks prior to this call, an ACO from the shelter was caught on videotape taking donations to the clothing bin that had been left outside the shelter the night before. One of the items thrown into the clothing bin was a dog bed. After receiving this information about the Petflow donations, I posted the information on my group asking if anyone was aware of this. One member stated that she remembered a picture we had posted on the inside of one of the ACO vans where there were bags of dog food, and one of the pictures had the Petflow label around it. Sure enough, we had the pictures of the donations. I immediately started to question why the shelter was always begging for donations if they were receiving 6 to 8 pallets of animal supplies a month. So what did I do? I opened the paperwork. I received several donation letters to Petflow from the borough of Palmetto. The amounts range from $5,000 to $8,000 per month from January of this year to present. During the first week of October, I received a tip that Brandon Metz was spotted putting 50-pound bags of dog food from his ACO van into the back seat of his mother's car. So now the investigation begins. As my husband and I were driving through the back parking lot of the Borough Hall, we noticed that the garage doors to the red building behind the structure was filled with pallets of dog and cat food. The next day, the food was gone, with the exception of a few bags. Again, I started digging. Then, during the second week of October, I received a tip that the Department of Public Works had picked up pallets of dog food and cat food to be thrown out. I went and I inspected. None of the food was expired. During the third week of October, I received a tip that a certain individual who is friends with the Metz Martin clan was seen storing large amounts of dog and cat food in his garage. Considering this particular individual is an ACO in another town, I started to have serious questions about the whereabouts of the food and if our animals at the shelter were actually receiving the food that was being donated to them. On October 21st, I received a tip that a Plainsboro resident was selling large quantities of slightly damaged, high-grade dog and cat food on Craigslist. This individual informed an individual who called that the food that he received, these items are authorized, that he's authorized to sell. When pressed, he gave 3 different stories. Again, I started digging. On October 23rd, I sent in an open request to the Montgomery Township asking for all donations of cat and dog food from December of 2013 to present. That afternoon, and much to my surprise, I received the answer to my request. Christopher Krieger, friend of Brandon Metz and an outspoken advocate of the mayor and her idiotic policies, is an ACO in Montgomery Township. Well, now the pieces started to fall into place. Here I have all of the donation forms of the pet food that Helmetta has donated to Montgomery Township. That's exactly what I said. Right here.
We don't even contract with that now.
Because Chris Krieger is an ACO at the Montgomery Township shelter. And it was his garage that the food was seen in.
Signature.
Oh, and by the way,
the signature.
Brandon Metz was the one that brought the food up to Montgomery, and Darren Doran, and Chris Krieger is the one that signed for all of the food. Just so you know, there's over $8,000 worth of food that was donated. Oh, I'll get to that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. ACO is Animal Control Officer, for those of you that don't know. As I said, there was food. As I said, there was food that was on Craigslist in Plainsboro. So I did a little digging, and sure enough, here's the ad from Craigslist. All of this food is the exact food that you currently have in your shed in the back. And I would like all 4 of you tonight to have that opened up and to look at the food that is inside that shelter, inside that facility out back. When I tell you there is at least 4 pallets of food that is as tall as me, that's not saying much, but that's at least as tall as me in that facility right now. Large, huge quantities. Quantities. Pallets. Pallets of cat litter. Pallets of food. Pallets of... I mean, it's ridiculous. But We're begging for donations. Today, we had this put up on the internet on the HRAS Facebook site. I need a place to do my business, please. They're called litter boxes. You have about 40 or 50 of them behind the shelter that need to be cleaned. Send somebody out there to clean them. Now, just so you know that I'm not lying, here's a picture of those litter boxes.
Show everybody, yeah.
Oh.
That's what they're requesting. With the dog bowls in them, of course.
Oh, and by the way, these dog bowls, these aren't used for food. These are used for cat litter.
That's my speech.
This picture was taken yesterday? Yes, this picture was taken yesterday. This is the food that is currently in the shed in the back. You see all of this?
Why do they have it here? Why wouldn't it be at the shelter?
Right. Because they're selling
Exactly.
Because they're not.
He's gonna hide it.
Now, this is from October 8th. This is more food, different food than what's in the shelter now. Garage. October 10th, more food. October 26th, more food. This picture was the original picture that got everything going. This was in the back of an ACO van in August.
Collene, turn it around.
Everybody does
Oh.
back here to see it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I handed it up already. Here I have 9 chain of custody forms from the Township of Montgomery showing that the Helmetta Regional Animal Shelter took the donations they received from PetFlow and donated them to the Montgomery Shelter where Chris Kryger of Helmetta works as an ACO. These donations were driven to the Montgomery Shelter in borough vans by Brandon Metz and Darren Duran over the course of the last 11 months. As Helmetta Regional Animal Shelter continuously begs the citizens of the 21 municipalities for donations of cat and dog food, they take the donations from PetFlow and instead of feeding the animals at the shelter, they donate the food to a friend of theirs who's an ACO in a completely different district in a completely different county. Each of these chain of custody forms were signed by the Helmetta residents and Montgomery Township ACO Chris Kryger. For the record, $7,900 of food was donated to the Montgomery Shelter, and the Montgomery ACO Christopher Kryger went so far as to write a donation receipt to the borough of Helmetta for the food that they didn't buy, but rather was donated to them by PetFlow and Cranberry. The corruption not only at the shelter level, but at the governmental level is staggering. To beg the public for donations and then to state publicly that myself, my husband, and my group are causing donations to be down, while all along knowing that you are mismanaging the food donations is unbelievable to me. To take blankets and towels and dog beds and throw them into the clothing bin instead of using these items, and then to beg for more of the same is just beyond my comprehension. Nancy Martin has abused her power, her position, committed fraud, has violated numerous constitutional rights of myself, my husband, and the members of my group, and the police officer, Director Manney, has done nothing to stop her. I am calling for an immediate resignation of Police Director Manney. I am demanding at this time that Nancy Martin, Brandon Metz, Michael and Richard Chellis, and Darren Doran be immediately arrested for fraud and misappropriation of donations as well as IRS fraud. I am also demanding that Christopher Kryger be arrested for conspiracy. I am also demanding that Christopher Kryger be arrested for conspiracy to commit fraud and receiving stolen property, and that his wife Jamie Kryger also be arrested for receiving stolen property. It is the duty of the police department of the borough of Helmetta to arrest these individuals for the fraudulent acts they have committed. If the police do not arrest these individuals, I will file an IA investigation for each one of the officers that are here tonight.
He's more worried about auto insurance over there. He's watching the auto insurance instead of listening. He's reading auto insurance pamphlets.
Also, I'm not sure that any of you are aware, but on Saturday we held a protest out in front of the Borough Hall again. And we will be doing this every Saturday in town until the situation is resolved. And if we have to do it every Saturday through the snow, the sleet, the rain, just like the mailmen, we'll be there. We're not going anywhere. If you notice, look at all of the orange shirts behind me. We are going nowhere. With that being said, I would like you to know that on Saturday at approximately 3:10, after our protest was over and we were cleaning up, Magdalena Metz, daughter-in-law of Nancy Martin, the mayor, parked her car in the middle of Main Street, opened her door, yelled obscenities, and then proceeded to assault one of the members of my group. physically punching her in her face. The police were called. Report was taken. Nobody was arrested at the time. We sat there and we waited for Officer Balthazar to come back as he requested so that he could get witness names and addresses. As we were standing in the back looking into the red barns at all of the food that was back there, Chris Krieger, the ACO of Montgomery Township, and Michael Metz, husband of Magdalena Metz, who assaulted one of my members, and the son of Mayor Nancy Martin, proceeded to step out of his vehicle, look at us, I'm just going to say it, jingle his junk in front of all of us and in front of my 13-year-old daughter. This is the son of the mayor of this town, who tried to incite a riot by bringing out a dunce cap and a sign after our peaceful protest. So once again, the mayor's goons came there and tried to do something to stop us. I'm going to reiterate, we are not going away. There's enough orange shirts in this room to prove we are not going away. We are holding a protest this Saturday in front of the shelter. I am asking for an officer to be stationed there from 12 to 3 so that we are not subject to these physical assaults and this sexual content again. To do something like that in front of a 13-year-old child when you are the son of the mayor of the town is deplorable. Deplorable. I also have here some other things. I'm not going to read all of these, but you can read them at your leisure. These are all copies. This is just a small portion of them, of the statements that people made online about the animals that they purchased and how much it cost them. I would like all of you guys to read that. I also want to know, if anybody can answer this, why was the union brought into the town for 2 employees? Why did we bring the Teamsters in here for 2 employees? 2 employees. Shall we all guess which one of the employees it was for? Brenda Metz. She was up there, huh? Why are Michael and Darren Doran part of the Teamsters if they're management? They're management. They're the DPW management, and they're the director management. Since when do we have Teamsters that are management? I don't think those questions can be answered.
We pay their dues.
Exactly. I also want to let you know at this time that because of Nancy Martin and the things that have transpired over the last couple of weeks, and because of her son doing what he did on borough property in front of my daughter, and because Police Director Manney seems that everything's a joke and is condescending, quite frankly.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I'm speaking. No, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. You can speak when you want to. I'm speaking now.
I'm not going to. All right. No.
This is an intention court claim. I am suing the town of Helmetta for violation of my rights, for violation of my daughter's rights, for violation of my group's rights, and for emotional distress caused to me and my family because of the mayor and her goons coming every week to go after my group. You're on notice. By the way, I'd like to thank all of you for being here. I appreciate it.